This is the part that always gets me. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome back to Skyfire TV. We're your hosts, Matt Malone, CEO of Skyfire, and Ben Kroll, COO of Skyfire. Ben, where are you in the world today?
I am in Denver, Colorado. And Matt, guess what?
What?
I have not had a haircut in 150 days.
150 days? I thought you were going to say 150 years.
Well, that wouldn't quite make a lot of sense.
No, I thought it was a joke. I was teeing up for a joke. That's what
No joke, for real. That's why I'm wearing the hat today.
No, it's smart. I probably should, because I actually rode my bike to work today, and I learned a lesson, which is don't wear a bike helmet on your way to do a national broadcast. I should probably put a hat on too, but anyway, we'll see how the day goes.
Maybe we could do a Facebook Live on how to do a Facebook Live.
Meta. It's probably not a horrible idea. Well, hola, back to you, Kyle Miller, our first viewer, also an employee here. So.
Hello, Kyle.
Hey, so today we were going to talk about something we've been talking about this for quite some time now, and the idea it's not like sort of a sexy topic, but the idea of why drone programs fail. And, we're always talking about how great drones are and how much you can use them and how many cool things you can do with them. But one of the things we don't talk about is the harsh reality that sometimes it doesn't work. And I think we are starting to get some data around why that is. And so it's something we wanted to bring to you guys because we think they're things that you can avoid. So let's start by talking about the obvious one, which is budget. These things cost money. We are always banging the drum that you cannot just buy a drone, but you also have to do the right training and FAA consulting and all that as well. And so sometimes, you get just enough money to buy a drone, and then that's all the money your department gives you. And that's one of the reasons we see this like sort of failure to launch, so to speak. So what do you think about that, Ben? What's been your experience in that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's definitely like up there with them. And you said it, this is sort of like the dirty little secret, right? Like we don't really talk about this much in the industry. Like why do we see a lot of agencies kind of start off like real hot and kind of gung ho and jump into it? And then 6 months later, the drone's just been sitting in the closet for a few months. So, the budget piece is a big part of it. I think that it's not really worked into a whole, a lot of budgets is just, this is something that we do every year. I think there's some agencies out there that are doing it that way, but it's just, that's not widespread yet. So
yeah,
just that budget challenge is a tough one to work through.
Well, the tagline I've always heard is this is a program and not a project, or this is a project and not a program.
Right.
And that's like, makes so much sense to me. Like, oh, a project is something you go to your chief and say, hey, I need some money once for this project. A program is something that gets put into the budget and it's recurring and there's money every year. And honestly, we haven't done a great job as a consulting company in saying, like, you're going to have to plan for battery replacements every year. And we can give you specific estimates on how much that's going to cost. I mean, obviously, who knows what'll happen, but, give you some estimates on, you're going to have to spend this much a year on batteries and this much a year on recurring training and this much a year on recertification or whatever.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And you talk about equipment too. Now, that's a whole other thing that people get into, where how many times have we seen an agency with like one or two drones and maybe their main drone goes down and they have to send it back to the manufacturer, right? And how, then it's down for 3 weeks and, they're missing this tool and they're not practicing with it. I sort of put it on some of the manufacturers, to come up with some solutions there. We don't have how many repair stations are there, for drones? Typically they have to go back to the manufacturer, which is frustrating.
Yeah, no, very true. So repair is an issue that you got to plan for. Replacement, sometimes, some of these parts are considered consumables, just like tires and brakes on your car. You have to replace batteries every so often. It's not like you're doing it every 6 months, but every year you're probably going to have to replace 30% of your batteries, probably after that first year. So definitely something to plan for. And training too. This is a big one. I wanted to talk about that. So lack of training, lack of recurring training is a reason that we see people just not utilize their programs. How do we plan for that ahead of time? What do you tell people going into this when they think about training and recurring training and all that?
Yeah, I think that just getting that message across how important training is. It's another thing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people kind of when they're putting a program together, the training area is actually where they skimp, right? That should be the area where you put the most into, I think, or one of, some of the most of your resources into, because, and it's not just the initial training, right? It's the training a month from now, 3 months from now, six months, a year from now, and so we're just trying to communicate that message. And I think kind of what you're saying, communicate that better and the importance of training, and then share with people what happens when you don't train, right? We've seen that. And really it leads to a lack of confidence. Worst case, it leads to accidents, so that to me, how I feel about training. I mean, that's number one for me.
Yeah, that's your thing. As a flight instructor, that's definitely your thing. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I think we should be clear about this too. Training doesn't mean necessarily like, hey, have Skyfire come back out and do another training class. This just means like once a month, you need to go put your hands on that drone and spend an hour or two messing with it. If you guys are doing training at your drill tower, your shoot house, or whatever the case may be, bring the drone, start to incorporate that. We actually went to a training, big thanks to our friends at Houston County Sheriff here in southern Georgia, went to a training with them where they were doing some SWAT stuff, and it just became apparent to them and to us that the two of them need to be training together more often, the drone team and SWAT team, because they weren't speaking the same language. And so stuff like that, it's better to figure that out on a blue sky day than on a gray sky day.
Yeah, and effective training too, right? Like scenario-based type training, training that really reflects the missions that the agency is operating. Because we get that, we go like, well, how do we train? How do we do recurrent training? And a lot of times, the agency on the coast in California is going to need to train a lot differently than, the sheriff's department that you were just talking about. So, understanding that piece, and what effective training is and scenario-based and those kinds of things, I think is another key element to that.
Yeah. Hey, will you talk a minute about the just sort of another reason that, I think people have trouble is because the compliance stuff. They're not reporting stuff, they're not. And I'm going to let you handle this one solo because I gotta do something real quick.
Yeah, sure. The compliance stuff is, it's crazy what goes on with the FAA requirements and, agencies trying to navigate what we call the CAP system and the difference between Part 107 and COA, and just having to.
Uh-oh, I think we lost him, but I'm back. So hopefully I'll pick up where he left. We're having some technical difficulties today. But yeah, I'm not sure where Ben was going with that. So we'll just, we'll start on into a new topic here. So one of the things I want to talk about as far as why programs fail is because internal communication, I think, is such a problem. So I'll give you kind of an example of what we're talking about there. And that, we've got some agencies who did, they're very gung-ho. They've got the budget, they've got the gear that they want, and their drone program is really up and running solid. But the problem is they haven't done a great job, or it hasn't been well received, the internal communications. And so, I hear, battalion chief went out to a fire and forgot to call us. Didn't realize that we had the drone available to them. And I think some of that goes back to training together and sort of making sure that you were on top of it, and just understanding that you guys are we're going to be working together and figuring out the best way to make that happen. And so the more you can be in front of the battalion chiefs and making sure that they understand that you're there as a resource, they'll remember to call you. And this is sort of the self-fulfilling prophecy. So the less you use it, the less people remember you, remember to call you, and the less they remember to call you, the less you're going to use it. So I was just jumping in since you got cut off there, talking about.
Sorry about that. My internet.
No, it's all kinds of technical difficulties today.
Yeah.
Jumping in to talk about just the idea that internal marketing is as important as external marketing, just so people remember to call you when they need the drone, because it's not always in their face. And so when you're doing tricking, making sure you're getting in front of the right people. But you were in the middle of something too. I wasn't.
Yeah,
sure.
I was just talking about the difficulty. Every day I talk to people about the difficulty of navigating this FAA stuff. The public aircraft operations versus Part 107, COA versus waivers, all of those things are very nuanced, they're very complicated. And that's where we see, we've been getting a lot of data about this one too, where we see a lot of people I think their programs are not as successful as they can be because they have all these like regulatory challenges. And what I like to tell people with this is like, just call us. Like we don't charge anyone to call us and have conversations with us about this stuff. We think, us giving out all of the correct information helps the industry as a whole, and especially helps public safety. And if we can make that a little bit easier, and if we can get the FAA a little bit more on board with making this a little bit easier, especially for the public safety, I think that we're going to have greater success.
Well, and we're a little bit easier to get a hold of than the FAA, at least the right people at the FAA.
That's so true. That's so true. Because there's misinformation within the FAA. Right. It's better now than it was, but especially at the beginning, you would call FSDO and get 4 different answers from 4 different people that you talk to there. It's better now. And I understand the hardships that the FAA has gone through with that, but it's still a thing.
Yeah. So call and ask us, and we can either get you to the right person at the FAA, or we'll just give you the answer if it's something we know how to answer. And honestly, yeah, you were talking about that data. So most of you probably weren't there, but Ben did a webinar the other day and was able to collect some actual raw data from the folks who were on the webinar about what made their program successful and not successful and their issues that they had. And one of those things was people are afraid of the FAA and afraid of the FAA regulations.
That was the biggest one, actually.
Yeah.
That I saw. I mean, by far.
It doesn't make sense to us. And I hear this all the time too, when, trade shows, remember that when we used to do that?
Yep. Well, wait, what's that?
Remember, like 20,000 of us in one place. And one of the things that people say was, just the FAA thing seems like a headache, and it seems like too much work for us. But think about all the regulations that as police and firefighters, you guys comply with all the time, right? I mean, there's certain rules you got to follow, and it's the same thing with the drone world. It's just something that's foreign to most police and fire departments. So educating yourself, and we can certainly help you get there. And then just following those rules, just like you would with your gun and use of force and your, driving lights and sirens and things like that. There's just a set of rules that you have to abide by. And then just like those things, you need to do good training to make sure that you can abide by them. So, emergency vehicle operators courses and driving courses and taser courses and shooting qualifications and all those kinds of things. It's the same thing as any one of those. I think one of the other big challenges is that people look at this as a big shiny program. We've done as much of a disservice on that too, as calling this your drone program. Like we were joking the other day, you don't have a gun program or a fire truck program. It's just a tool, right? And so getting out of this idea that this is something like whiz bang cool, this extra thing that if we have the time we'll pay attention to, and just getting it into the daily workflow as just a tool like any other tool, like a fire hose or a gun or
that's a great point. Just the better integration with that. I mean, that you said it. It's just figuring out how to integrate that better, and we're still figuring that out, right? Like we have agencies that are, and it's one of those things that I think it's different for a lot of different agencies. So inherently presents some challenge, right?
We're all learning this together. So I mean, this is new to everybody. I mean, relatively speaking, drones have really only been in the public safety world in any kind of major way for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Of course, there's other people, like Ben Miller, who we had on, who's been flying drones for public safety for like 15 years, but most of us have only been doing this for a couple of years. And so we're starting to see a little bit of the shine wear off, and starting to go like, okay, let's get some real data on, what works, what doesn't work. And we're starting to figure some of those things out. One of the things I thought was interesting from that survey, Ben, and you can talk more about this, is that like a not insignificant portion of people said their drone program was a waste of time, which I found fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think we gave them 3 options on that one. Like, is your drone program like highly successful, somewhat successful, or basically a waste of time, like you said. And I was surprised at how many people said it's pretty much a waste of time. And so then that just made me want to kind of get in there more and go like, well, which one of these things is it, right? Is it the regulations? Is it training? Is it equipment? Is it, support, community support? That's one we haven't talked about, community. But yeah, no, I'm with you. That was a little bit eye-opening for me.
Well, and one of the cool things too, I mean, I distinctly remember when you and I first started doing this back in 2014, thinking like, man, this is such an uphill battle. Like the FAA allows you to do one thing or 2 things, and we're never going to be able to get out of that.
Right.
And we've quickly realized like there isn't a whole lot that you can't do with the right approach. We've done beyond line of sight COAs now, and we've done, COAs for things that are over 55 pounds, and those things are all possible. And so, you really have to look at, like, instead of saying like, I'll never be able to do that, saying like, I'll be able to do that, but I have to be committed to like putting the work in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's where we see departments like guys who are like, oh, this might be cool. We're going to buy a drone, spend a couple grand on it, see if we use it. Those programs tend not to do well.
That's right.
You really need an evangelist who's going to be like, oh, I'm going to put the work in, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And then we've seen programs like that evolve. We've seen some of the people on this webinar with
That's
us.
right. That's right. And the one thing that they've done too to be successful is that they brought other people into that. Because how many times have we had people? I had this call the other day. Somebody was in charge of the drone program for the agency, and they did all the COA stuff, and they were the person. Unfortunately, the person passed away, and no one else knew, kind of what to do, especially like on the regulation side. So if you're that person, that's awesome, but also make sure you bring in more people in around you to support you, so that if you move or get transferred or retire, that they can someone can kind of pick up and run with what you've built.
And for that matter, other agencies nearby. I mean, when we had Greg Smith on the other day from North Tahoe, the idea of having regional programs where you can all support one another, I think is super important, because you never know when you're going to need more capability than you've got in your own agency. And we saw that, I think, with protests. I think we've seen that with COVID, natural disasters. We get a hurricane, shooting its way up the East Coast right now. So, I mean, I think there are definitely times where you're going to need more capability than you have within your own program. So that's another way to kind of give your program some longevity.
For sure.
You mentioned this too, and I wanted to dive into this some more, but the idea of community support. This is a big one. This is one we've known.
It's the fastest way to end your drone program, by not doing it correctly, by causing a problem with it in the community. Yeah. Absolutely.
And this is the one we've known without any data from the very beginning was a problem. So
that's right.
I think that's like,
and we get examples of this every year, right? I mean, every few months there's an example of this in the media. We read about it and go like, well, they weren't engaging their community properly.
Yeah. And so I think there's a tendency, I would say more on the law enforcement side than on the fire rescue side. There's a tendency to want to be secretive about these things and be like, these are our investigational tools and we don't want to tell everybody about them. This is not one of those situations where you can really do that. Because if you are too secretive about it, then I think there's a lot of people who think you're up to something, and there's a mistrust there. And so I think it's really important to be upfront about, hey, this is what we are doing with our drone program. This is what we are not doing with our drone program. And we'd really like your support on it. If there are questions, we're always happy to talk to you about it. We're always happy to show you video where we can, where it's not protected, evidentiary material. But like, we got nothing to hide here is kind of the mantra that you need to share with the community. One of the agencies I think that's done probably the best job of any of this is our friends over at Chula Vista. We've talked about this a couple of times, but they have a website that anybody can go to and pull up the latest stats on their drone program and know exactly what they've been up to. And so transparency is key, because otherwise you're going to start getting bombarded with media inquiries and FOIA requests and all that kind of stuff.
And what I've seen too is it doesn't mean there's not going to be opposition, right? I mean, there's always going to be opposition out there, I think, around this and some controversy. But spending the time engaging the community is just absolutely 100% worth it.
Yeah, totally agree. And so that's another good way. So let's see, we've talked about budgetary support. We've talked about community support. We've talked about making sure you're doing enough training. We've talked about regulatory support. Another thing that I think, this is sort of an early on conversation, but getting command staff support and internal support within the agency. We had a case that Ben and I both sort of remember well, where we had a department that was like literally had a check in hand, and then the mayor got wind of it and said, "Nope, we're not doing it." So obviously we shall not name that program, but
I think we were like on our way over there, right, to like sign a contract or something.
Yeah, actually had check in hand, like that. That's not hyperbole.
They're like, hey, the mayor just walked out of the office. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's one where it's great that you want to do it. It's great that you actually even have the budget for it, but make sure you get everybody's buy-in on it, because city councils are notorious for shutting things like this down, or at least asking lots and lots and lots of questions. Even if you can get a hold of the budget, being able to employ it and deploy it and do it in a way that's not going to make anybody mad. And that's where the politics comes in, right? So you gotta be a good salesperson internally as much as you are externally. So
yeah, I've been on. Well, I was just going to say to that, I've been on more than one training where we broke for lunch and went to a restaurant or something, and the city council person comes by and is like, "Hey, what are you guys up to?" And then we have a conversation about the drone program, and it's you feel the politics going on there,
Yeah.
But that's certainly been a thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's something we've seen, unfortunately, far too often. So, well, cool. I think anything else that we didn't talk about?
I think there's a lot to it, right? We can talk about this for a long time. I think that this was important for us to just we've never really been, kind of blatant about this. I don't know, if a lot of people are really talking about this. Like I said, it's, kind of call it the dirty little secret. So we could talk about this for a while. I think it's important to know, I think it's important for agencies to know, at 1 month, here are the problems I'm having. At 3 months, here are the problems that you can expect to have, right? At 6 months, 12 months. I just think that that's important for people to know and plan ahead and be thinking about those things. But I think we got kind of the main points here covered, right? We talked about the equipment side of things. And I just think that these are conversations we should continue having and talk about this some more, get it out and open, look at it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there as far as the things that make a drone program fail, and expect to hear more from us on this, because I think it's a super important topic, and we're starting to get some more research about why these things happen. And so let us help you avoid those, whether you buy stuff from us or not. We can at least point you in the right direction. So,
absolutely. Yep. Well said.
Well, we are now at the point that I'm very excited about. We are going to welcome on maybe more than one, but at least right now, let's get him in here. He's connecting to audio. We are going to welcome on some members of our Skyfire team here. Let's see, hopefully this is going to work. Jake, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You look so different.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 second. Hold on, I got to go into my settings.
That's okay. We'll introduce. Yeah, go ahead and introduce Jake here, Matt.
Yeah. We'll tee it up here. So this is another thing we've been talking about for a while is we're out in the field a lot, and we get into some really interesting and weird situations. And every time we tell one of these stories, somebody's like, "Oh, you guys have to tell that story. That's such a great story." And we just thought, this would be kind of a fun way to give you guys some background on what it's like to be in the field with us sometimes. So there's two in particular that we want to share today, and I'm sure some other ones will come out of it too. But Ben, while we're waiting on Jake's camera to turn on, should we tell the emergency rap video story?
Absolutely. Go for it. Go for it. I'm still literally looking at the scar right now.
I forgot that you still had a scar. It's pretty amazing. There's Jake.
Hey, Jake.
What's up? How are you guys?
Doing great. How are you?
Good.
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the broadcast here, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are gonna we're gonna tell the emergency rap video story first, and then we'll get to the story that you guys got into. So let me set the scene here. Ben and I are home for the day. We've left the office. It's like 5:30 in the afternoon, and I get a phone call from some random number that says, "Hey, do you guys shoot rap videos?" And we're like, "I mean, sure, I guess we do." They're like, "Cool, can you come right now?" And we're like, "Well, that's not a thing that's ever happened before." So this is why we call it the emergency rap video. But hey, we need you guys to come right now. And I called Ben. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing? You want to go shoot a rap video?" He's like, "Yeah, when should I put it on the calendar?" I'm like, "No, like now. I'm picking you up in 20 minutes." So go pick Ben up. We go to a bar in Midtown Atlanta, and these guys are pretty drunk. And they're like, "Hey, we're going to shoot a rap video. Our drone guy bailed on us. Can you help?" We're like, "Let's do this." So we're like, "Okay, so what's the plan? Like, what shot? Do you have a shot list? What are we, where are we gonna do this or whatever? And they're like, well, we were thinking about this football stadium. We're gonna do some awesome shots over there, and then like have you guys follow us on the road. So we were like, oh, okay, cool. So like we've got permission to go shoot at this football stadium, and they're like, no, not at all. So we were like, okay, so how's this gonna happen? So we were like, all right, let's just go along with this. We'll see what happens. So go with these guys. We're not going to mention their names. I think that's probably a safe bet here. We go with these guys. We get over to this football stadium, and the joke was on us because not only did we not have permission to shoot there, it was also like closed, like for years closed. Had a fence around it. Like,
mind you, this was years ago when we were trying to just keep the lights on.
Right, exactly.
I just want to point this out. We don't do this today.
Yeah. This was a long time ago. So we were like, okay, well, I don't know how we're going to do this because, like, obviously we're trespassing and this is like a disaster waiting to happen. But so we're standing there, and the security guard was like, "No, I'll let you guys in." We're like, "Oh, okay." So the security guard let us in. He goes, "But the problem is, I don't have the keys." Like, okay, well, that seems like an oversight. Like, maybe the security guard should have the keys, but whatever. He's like, no, you guys can go in. It's cool, but you're going to have to climb over this brick wall to get there. And so we look at the brick wall. Wall's here. There's grass here. You know, it's 2 foot. We're like, okay, yeah, no problem. We look over the other side of the brick wall, and it goes into a stairwell. And so it was about, I don't know what, 7-8 feet down.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So there's like, in the stairwell, there's a trash can with a cooler stacked on top of it, and that's going to be our method of getting down.
Oh, right. I forgot.
The stairwell. So we're like, okay, here we go. Like, this is, yeah. Anyway, so we start climbing over this wall. We get down onto the cooler, down onto the trash can, into the stadium. Then we've got, at the time, it was our Inspire 1 case, which was like, felt like 400 pounds, hoisting this thing over the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Passing it down through the trash can and the cooler. And we get all the way down, like, then we had to go down from like the 300 section of the stadium down onto the field to lots of stairs, and realized, oh, we left our SD cards in the truck. So we had to like go back, climb over the wall, get the SD card, whatever. So then you and I are shooting some drone video. We're standing on the 50-yard line of this football stadium that was closed. And the artists were actually inside the stadium getting some stuff in the breezeways. And you and I are standing in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden the Atlanta police helicopter flies over.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Stops. And we're like, well, there's nowhere to hide here. We've since joked with the Atlanta police guys about this. But like, we're standing in the middle of the 50-yard line in this football stadium that they know has absolutely been closed for years. And the helicopter just kind of stops, and we're like, I don't know where to go from here. So we just kind of were like, waved and, you know, just hope for the best. And then the helicopter left, and we finished our shoot. And then, so we finished our stuff. And then the critical part here was me and Ben were like, we have got to get back over this wall before they are done shooting, because it ain't going to be pretty. And these guys are going to like totally give us crap about this. So we're like, okay, so we're going to get back over this wall before these guys are done shooting. So we get over there, and we like hoist the drone case up there. And then all of a sudden the security guard's like, oh, the cops are coming, so you guys got to hide. And we're like, are you kidding me? Like, we're totally going to be in jail by the end of this evening. And so now we got to like hide. And then while we're hiding, like the situation cleared itself up, but now the artists were like right there. So like our worst nightmare had come true. So now they were going to watch our fat asses try and get over this wall. So I like shamu myself onto this wall and like try and roll over.
It really was like that. Like you had to like roll up on like, the wall.
Throw your whole body up. And I mean, it was so bad.
That's where I got my scar. That's where I cut up my knee.
Yeah.
On that wall.
And I'm pretty sure I remember the artist being like, "Oh shit, did you guys see that?" Totally. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the worst nightmare." So the long and short of it was a great afternoon. We got paid a couple $100 in cash, and I never saw the music video. I don't actually think it ever came out, but
I don't think it did either. I looked for
really
it.
Bummed because we actually got super cool video. So,
yeah, it was cool. Yeah. It was a cool shot.
So that's the emergency rap video story. Now I will.
I also did an emergency rap video as well with T.I. If you remember that one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that one posted. That one's available, right?
Yeah.
T.I.
Our truck actually made it into the video too.
I think that was
T.I. or T-Pain. T-Pain.
T-Pain, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that was a cool shoot. You got
that was
awesome
cool.
tracking shots.
We should link to that somewhere.
We should.
Yeah, definitely.
However you do social media, we should do that.
Well, aren't you glad we don't have a TikTok account, because it might be getting shut down? So
that's
it would
true.
have been a
Good
waste of
point.
time.
This is true.
Good point. Yep.
All right, you guys take it.
Yeah. Jake, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about the hurricane hunter stuff. We don't really do much of it anymore. But for me, that was like some of the coolest stuff that I've gotten to do, in the field with actual like drone filming. We went and sort of embedded ourselves with a Weather Channel team. We've done that several times actually with some of the different personalities at the Weather Channel. In 2017, Jake did Hurricane Harvey. I don't think that was for the Weather Channel, but we did Irma. So basically we just kind of followed the track of Irma and set up where we thought it was going to set up, and that was with Jim Cantori. And if anyone's seen Jim Cantori and his gregarious personality, there he is in the center there holding the drone. Some people remember him from the Thunder Snow episode where he got really, really excited about Thunder Snow. And Jim's so great because he's like that all the time. I mean, he's just 100% all the way, really trying to get the right shot. And he did a great job of incorporating the drone stuff into the story that he was telling about where the storms were heading and kind of what to expect. And I remember specifically when we were doing Irma, we did a shot where he was kind of talking about there are all these cranes around the city of Miami, and that's where they were first expecting it to hit. And so we did this whole segment on, kind of what would happen, what kind of winds would topple these cranes and the danger and, kind of getting people out of the way of that kind of stuff. So pretty interesting stuff. I think the biggest one that stands out to me, and Jake, I'll kind of let you talk about this one a little bit, but we relocated to, where were we? Fort Myers?
Fort Myers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Fort Myers.
So we were at Fort Myers, and Cantori and the Weather Channel said, we think this is where the storm is going. And so we kind of boarded up into this hotel, and Jake, you want to tell the story of what happened there?
Yeah, I kind of want to back up though, to, our initial drive down too, and kind of, can we explain a little about,
please.
Going
Absolutely.
down and how, like, we were, worried about having fuel for our trip and making sure we had all the supplies we needed. Remember, we were scavenging Walmart and Target.
Yeah, that's right. We couldn't find gas cans, right?
Yep. Yeah, because we were looking, and then it ended up they had a fuel truck for us. But
right.
So when we got into Miami, we were like, this is the perfect place to be for the storm. We were in the Intercontinental.
It was so
which
nice.
had backup power and generators and a
They said
steakhouse.
the worst thing that was going to happen to us there is we wouldn't be able to get room service. And we were like, this is awesome. We're going to cover this hurricane and be comfy, but nope.
Yeah, and then the storm shifted and we ended up in Fort Myers, I don't know what we were in, Spring Hill Suites or something like that.
Courtyard.
With no power. Yeah, courtyard with no power and stuff. So.
Yeah, and then, I remember it was, and it's crazy when you're out there in the field, there's so much happening, right? Like, well, for a while, nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden it's go time, right? And then, you have to be on it. And I remember we were trying to upload video and we didn't have power. So we'd have to trudge upstairs because we were on the third floor and then come back down with the SD cards and all that stuff. And I remember, so we're there and I remember the winds, right? Like these 100-mile-an-hour winds. And in a matter of minutes, they just stopped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's really funny about this is Jake and Dan, who he works closely with, are two kind of really experienced pilots. So they do a lot of the filming out there. I don't do a lot of filming, right? I do a little bit of training, so I don't fly a drone. So this stops, all of a sudden we can fly. This is the eye of the hurricane, right? And we can fly in it. Jake's upstairs, and I'm I have to do the flying now on the drone. So I'm screaming like, Jake, where are you? And then, so finally, then Jake shows up and it's still in the eye. And so he's able to take the drone up and get the good picture. Anything stand out to you, Jake, about that flying in the eye and what that was like?
Honestly, it wasn't too far off from a normal flight. Other than we were in the eye. The winds were fairly calm. I'd say they were 10 to 15 mile an hour winds. The ceilings had kind of lifted. Instantly almost. And then just getting that footage once we got it up. Cantori's energy towards you know, making sure that everyone in the world saw what the drone saw. You know, it was cool for sure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it really was something else. I'll never forget that moment. I think we've got a link to that video somewhere in our social media.
Yeah, we'll redo social media. We'll put that in.
Yeah, it's really cool, but it's a cut that the Weather Channel did of us flying, and I don't know that this is for certain. It's possible. We definitely weren't the first to fly a drone in the eye of a hurricane, but we may have been the first to live broadcast nationally from inside the eye of a hurricane, and that was kind of cool. We still have that little, what do we have down there, like an M200 and a P4, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
And and I think, can you guys see the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that picture, if I remember correctly, that's the you on the air live, Jake, with Cantori.
Yeah.
Yep. That is the moment.
Streaming from their camera. Yep.
Kind of a funny story about this too, from later after the fact, is we actually got reported to the FAA for this. And,
we did. We did. They did an investigation.
They did an investigation, and the complaint said, you know, the reporter was saying that, you know, it was 100-mile-an-hour winds and visibility was 0, and then some guys got a drone up, and, you know, this seems like totally irresponsible. And so the FAA safety inspector called us and said, hey, like, what's the deal here? And we basically were like, yeah, that was true. And then the eye came, and all of a sudden visibility was great and winds dropped down to almost nothing. And so we were, you know, totally legal to do what we did. And, you know, the airspace was correct. And
you'll be able to see that in that video. You'll be able to see, I mean, you can see for miles in that video because the eye was there.
Yeah. Even in that picture, you can see, you know, guests from the hotel out walking around. I mean, it was calm. So.
Yeah. So that was just kind of a funny end note to that.
Yeah.
A couple months later, and then a phone call from the FAA.
And then the funny thing too with this picture too are the couple of folks wearing helmets.
Right? Oh yeah.
Like, I remember going like, wait, who gets a helmet and who doesn't get a helmet?
Well, no.
And remember, Cantori got a bulletproof vest from the sheriff's office or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he was
Kevlar.
Well, so just a little bit like sausage making here. So that's Brad Reynolds shooting on the camera, and Brad, like when it's raining outside.
No. That's Matt Safer.
Oh, Matt Safer. Okay. Yep. Well, and then Trey Howell.
Yeah.
They're the truck operator, and so they both have the helmets on. But yeah, it's just kind of funny because those guys are like, man, we're prepared for anything. So like, I'm here to do a job. I don't want to get hit in the head while I'm doing it. So, and Cantori's bald, so you know he's got to keep that dome open for.
And I just got to give a shout out to Trey out there. I don't know if he's watching or pays any attention to this, but man, that guy came prepared with all of the supplies and food and made us some like fantastic meals.
Well, and actually that's another link we should post here too, because you and I, Ben, did at a different hurricane, Matthew maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Matthew.
We did like a behind the scenes on how well we were eating during the hurricane.
That's right.
Because of Trey. So can you guys see my mouse pointer as I move it around?
Yep.
So that's Trey Howell. He's the truck operator. And that's Steve Pederak, who's Jim Cantori's producers, or one of Cantori right there. There's Matt Safer, the other guy you were talking about. So, and there's you two. But yeah, man, Trey came prepared. I know, at least in the storm I was on with you guys, we were having steaks and ribs, and Ben, you cooked most of the dinner for us, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we had a whole dinner. I mean, it was not, you know, it actually was nice because you're like wet and it's humid and it's kind of gross out. You have no power, right? Yeah. So you're like, it's like the one thing that you have like to look forward to.
Yeah,
and you know, when you're out there.
I distinctly remember. I think we were like at a Hampton Inn or whatever, and all they had was that they had like a Otis Spunkmeyer cookie oven.
That's right. We took over the oven. Did we cook the steaks in that oven?
Yeah, I think we did. I think
or the potatoes.
We had rolls going. I mean, it was like, and then and then when we were all done, they were like, we brought wine for after the storm was over, and I'm like, guys, it's like 7:30 in the morning.
That's right. Yeah,
nobody brought the corkscrew. Anyway, I do love the hurricanes. I do kind of miss getting out there. We haven't had a serious one, which obviously is a very good thing overall. That we haven't had a serious one in a while. So
and then the other one that Jake did was Harvey. Jake, can you just touch on that just for a minute? What that was like being out in Harvey?
Yeah, so Walt and I went out and did Harvey, and I mean, I've never seen flooding like that in my life. You know, I have a screenshot of the road closures on Apple Map, and I mean, the whole city was completely shut down, and trying to move and get shots was just I mean, it was tough. You'd have to turn back almost every single road. And,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a good point too. Like we talk about this, and one thing that really struck me as we did all of this stuff, and I remember the moment it really hit me. Is like we get excited to go do this, and we're like, we're gonna go help and be a part of this and use our tools, and then you really start to see like how something like that affects somebody. Like, I mean, life altering for a lot of people, in those situations, and that doing that stuff that always kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, and
whenever we're out there.
I think that's one of the things too that we sort of joke about this stuff, and it's a little bit like gallows humor. It's like because you have to sort of make light of this situation, otherwise it completely overwhelms your senses and sensibilities. And I for many of you probably don't know, but I used to be a producer at CNN for a long time, and I covered Hurricane Katrina, and I've got a lot of stories that we laugh about to this day. Some funny things that happened, but man, there was nothing funny at all about that storm. So just walking through these towns afterward, and the one that just sticks out so clearly in my mind is where like we were in Biloxi. So Biloxi took the storm really badly, but didn't have as much of the flooding as Katrina did, as New Orleans did. And we literally had to walk along like a block and a half worth of rubble just to get to the site that we were going to. And then some people had already come back and were looking at, and they offered us to make us lemonade. And they were like, I was just like, oh my God, these people literally have lost everything, and they're like trying to offer us hospitality. And so you just see that over and over again. That's the other side of this thing. And that's, you kind of have to laugh about some of this stuff, or else you'd be, So I will say, Matt Safer is watching this, and he commented and said, I remember a very different story from that trip. So I don't know what that means.
I completely forgot about that. I don't think we could talk about that.
Oh yeah. I got the video. Do we want to roll it?
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I suspect this is not the place to ask you about it.
No.
Nor is it the place to ask Matt. So
that is really funny. I mean, I don't know how I forgot about that one, but that's really good.
Well, we'll talk about that one offline.
Matt, do you remember our very first shoot that we did together?
Our very first shoot that we did together? No, remind me.
I think this one's actually interesting. I just wanted to mention this because we had an Inspire One.
Yep.
We did another commercial where the payment was another Inspire One. That was after that.
That was after that. Oh, okay.
The zinger thing.
The Zing Blaster.
The Zing Blaster.
Yeah.
Ring Blaster.
Ring Blaster.
I'm not talking about that one. That one we got paid with another Inspire One.
Yes, we got paid with another drone. Awesome.
Right. But the one before that was the first one, which was a retirement community that somebody asked us to go film. And it was the owners who were selling it. So they didn't tell management that we were there, right? And they were like, you can't tell them what's going on.
Right.
So we had to navigate this really weird.
They didn't tell management that they were selling the community. So these people were like, why are you here? We're like,
and we were like, we're just getting some beauty shots.
Yeah, we just really think this is a beautiful retirement home. So, like, God, I forgot about that. Oh, we've had some good ones. We did Real Housewives of Atlanta season 9. That Jake and I got yelled at by a couple of housewives. One in particular.
They're still using our shots in the current season.
I saw that.
So,
Not that I watch it, but
can we talk just for a minute about one of the greatest movies ever made and our involvement with it?
You were about to say True Memoirs of an International Assassin.
Yes, I know everyone out there has seen True Memoirs of an International Assassin.
If by everyone, you mean absolutely nobody.
Which is a Netflix release a few years back that Matt and I sat on set all day and did about 8 seconds worth of shooting.
Legitimately 8 seconds worth of shooting, because
it's a beautiful shot. 2 shots.
It is a beautiful, and in fact, that shot is in our current reel because it was such a beautiful shot. But it was a satire about international spy ring, and our shot was the one that was supposed to be zooming in from the satellite.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like what was going on in the backyard. And I believe for those of you who've seen the movie, you'll understand this. For those of you who have not, spoiler alert.
Turn it off now.
Turn it off now. I might ruin this scene for you. But there's a shot in the movie where they have an argument about why the guy can't get Zima. So, and he ends up shooting the guy because he couldn't get it. Zima. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember how intense. Who was it? Kevin James?
James movie, yeah.
Yeah, and he would act the scene, and I'd never been around like movie production before until then, right? But he would act the scene, and then like, I mean, stone face, he'd go back and he'd sit down and he'd like watch it. I just remember that over and over and over again, like getting it perfect.
Yeah, and to his credit, I mean, Kevin was we met him briefly. He's super cool guy, Kevin James.
Yeah.
And Andy Garcia was in that movie too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So we kept going every time they would walk by, I'd be like, "That's Terry Benedict's chair over there." Like, remember that?
I forgot. Yeah.
And those guys, I think those guys were smoking a cigar the entire time that we were there. So
for sure.
Funny story. My brother is now working with one of the producers of that movie to produce another project. So
cool.
What's old is new again, and we may get to do some drone stuff on it. So
fun.
It's a small world. It's a small world. And then we left half of our gear there. Remember that? We had to go back and get our battery charger, our quad battery charger that we left there.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, we walked off set with a
oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
All of our batteries there. So
yeah.
we had a good time. Safer says, please don't tell that story, but Jake has the video. All right, Matt, we won't tell that story. Definitely not. We'll just we'll tell more stories about how you keep getting stuck on airplanes and getting delayed. But anyway, man, we have had some good times over the years. That is for sure, and we look forward to many more of them to come. So, but Jake, it was great. It was great having you on the old webinar.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was fun.
Now you got to go out and create some more funny stories for us to tell.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're doing like a shopping center.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We did have that flyaway one. Neither of you guys was with me that time. I was with our friend Jonathan. We were doing a mapping job, and a brand new Phantom 2 or something just took off.
I was supposed to be on that shoot with you.
Where?
That was like way back.
Yeah, and it just took off, and I think it like returned home to China. Like I never saw it again. So that was unfortunate. It was also way back in the day, so when those things used to happen. But
we also hit power lines one time. Remember that? And the drone was fine. It like flipped over and just kept on going.
When it was a motorcycle shoot.
Yeah, a wooden scooter.
Yeah, literally like hit a power line and flipped around and kept going. So that was kind of cool.
I may or may not have hit power lines, but we won't talk about my power lines.
And we have to say, we have procedures in place now, so that stuff does not happen. We learned a lot those first couple of years, and we operate
like every other
safely.
drone organization. We have learned a lot of lessons along the way, and we have a very good safety record since then. So we've taken those lessons to heart. But I do remember that one time that I crashed a drone into a river.
Yeah, man, that was just, I watched, it was like I was watching that in slow motion.
Yeah, God, I remember I specifically remember me crashing that drone.
Yeah.
So,
hey, I just want to ask Jake, who was holding the controller when the drone went into the water? That would be Matt. Yeah. So I don't know why I get pinned for this one.
Well, look, I think now we have to tell the story. So.
Okay. Well, here, I'll take this one. Okay. So we were being interviewed for a magazine publication, a national publication, and we were demonstrating the ability to deliver like a flotation device to somebody who's in water and struggling, right? So the goal was to take this Inspire and fly this device over to the person and drop it. And, so I took off the drone, and right away, something was wrong with the drone. I can't remember what happened now, but it was some sort of power issue that we were having, and it was kind of all over the place, didn't really have satellites, and we were under this bridge. And so I got to a point where I was like, I didn't know what else to do with it. So I just tried to bring it back, and it started kind of heading towards the water. So in my defense, the reason I passed this off to Matt, because I'm like, Matt, take the controls. Because I was like, I've exhausted everything I know how to do. So I hand the controller to Matt, and what happens, Matt?
It immediately went down into the river, and we did not have a chance to deploy the flotation device from the drone. So it actually did its job and inflated and kept the drone floating.
And floated it down to the guy with the drone attached to
him. Who was like, luckily, had the capability to grab it, pull it out of the water. And then we had to go to the national magazine crew that was there collecting the whole thing and was like, please don't show this in the article. And it turned out it was a motor failure. We found out. And actually, we dried that drone out and it still flies today.
We don't really use it. Yeah, but
right, but it's flyable. So
yeah,
that was a good one. So lots of good ones. So well, good times, guys. This was super fun. We should tell war stories more often.
Cool.
Well, I will. I got to get our super fun theme music up and running here.
Oh yeah, Jake, you got to dance.
Yeah, you got to.
Okay.
It's sort of a requirement for being on a webinar. So.
Yeah, and still no TikTok.
Still no.
Oh
TikTok.
man.
We may never have our
next
thing,
time.
but it sounds like Microsoft. Thank you guys so much for watching.
We'll see you guys. Thanks for the invite.
This has been fun. If you want to get in touch with us, go to skyfireconsulting.com. Twitter, Facebook, Zoom, Instagram, and still no TikTok. So thank you guys.
See you, everybody.